He probably should apologize. He's not going to apologize. He'll move on to the next. And that's the way Donald Trump operates.
Why is it, Gloria, so hard for this president to admit, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, I'll apologize to the former president, I'll apologize to the British government for citing this erroneous report that the British intelligence was spying on him at Trump Tower?
Because that's not who he is. As Rick, the Gold Star family consulted, he gave a speech that he read on prompter and said at that point, I have some regrets. Apologize directly.
Legitimate issue, and he doesn't think he accused anybody. In his own mind, he doesn't think he accused anybody. He thinks he simply
calling someone a sick or bad man.
I think the notion of the president apologizing is like, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. However, I think the real question is whether this is a lesson learned. I also don't know if the answer to that is yes either. Because, again, going back to what we were talking about before, what are we talking about? We're talking about whether or not President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. We're not talking about, for this minute, and probably the headline coming out of this hearing that's going to start in 10 minutes, is going to be this. It's not going to be the collusion, allegations of collusion, questions of collusion between President Trump and his allies and anybody in Russia, or going a step further, questions about any kind of financial issues basically financial problems that Trump had that the Russians potentially helped him with. You're shaking your head. You're nodding your head.
I totally agree. I think it's giving him too much credit to think that he read that Breitbart article, absorbed it, and honestly, legitimately thought that President Obama wiretapped him. I don't think this was an honest mix-up. I think this was a deliberate attempt to introduce a stink bomb into the conversation about Russia, and it succeeded for the last 2.5 weeks of distracting people's attention. I think this is probably the most likely thing that Director Comey is going to weigh in on and give a direct answer to today. I also think it's probably the least consequential item that will be discussed in this hearing.
But I think this goes to a question of accountability and credibility. You know, Donald Trump always ran a private business, and he was accountable to his family, perhaps, and himself. And now he's in a different position. And I do think, as President of the United States, you have to learn that accountability matters and that credibility matters, and whether or not he's diverted the conversation, I agree with both of you on that, but in the long term, there are only so many times you can go to the well on credibility until it hurts.
Do we know the answer to that question yet? It's the key one. You've seen over the weekend mostly moderate, or Tom Cole's a conservative, but he's a deal maker in the House, say the president's, who's frowning at the conservative Senator Santorum there, okay, but you've had several Republicans say, you know, eventually this is going to hurt the president's credibility. However, the president in the last week is getting a lot of credit from people from doing some any evidence yet that it is affecting his job. What we did learn from the campaign is that President Trump is not ideological. He's transactional. He does roll these grenades into the room when he's trying to change the subject. When he did this one, he was mad. His attorney general had just recused himself. His big day on the aircraft carrier had been taken away from other stories, and he rolled this in. When he pulled back in the campaign, he didn't say sorry. It was transactional. It was beginning to hurt him. He would pull back and recalibrate for a bit. So I think as we watch this going forward, if there's evidence this hurts the president, he may change his tack for a certain period of time.
Everybody hold on, Clarissa. Stand by. We're going to take a quick break. Our special coverage of this very important House Intelligence Committee hearing with the FBI director and the director of the National Security Agency will continue right after this.